I've officially maxed out my first home savings account for this year. As a quick refresher, the FHSA is Canada's newest tax-advantaged investment account. It was launched by the Canadian government back in 2023 with the purpose of helping people save for their first home. It's specifically meant for first-time home buyers, and you have to plan on actually living in the home that you buy as opposed to using it to buy an investment property. Also, the overall lifetime contribution limit is $40,000. So that means that the maximum amount of money that you can actually put into an FHSA is $40,000, but ideally you're investing that money that you put in so it can actually surpass the amount that you contributed. Now, this contribution room only starts building once you actually open up an FHSA. And once you open one, you can only have it open for a max of 15 years. So after that point, you either have to use the money inside to buy a house or you have to transfer it to your RRSP instead. So once you open an FHSA and you want to use that money inside to buy your first home, you're basically saying that you plan on purchasing that home within the next 15 years. Okay, so let's get back to me for a second. When this account first launched, I actually didn't open one up right away, and it's because I was focusing on maxing out my TFSA first. And because I was so close to maxing it out at that point, I really wanted to just finish with my TFSA before moving on to opening up an FHSA. Also, in general, I'm definitely more focused on investing for retirement right now, which is what I use my TFSA for, as opposed to investing to buy my first home. So that's exactly what I did. I finished maxing out my TFSA first, which I was able to do in February of this year, which was really exciting. And once that happened, I decided that it did make the most sense for me to open up an FHSA next because of its benefits. Honestly, depending on your situation, it might make even more sense to use an FHSA before a TFSA because its benefits are even better. Let me explain. The main benefit of using a TFSA to invest is that your investments inside of this account grow tax-free, meaning that you can contribute money into this account, let it grow in value for years, and then when you eventually take money out of the account, you don't have to pay any taxes on that money. Also, you can take money out at any time, although hopefully you'll end up using it for retirement unless you have some other sort of specific purpose. Now, even though the TFSA is amazing, the FHSA actually has that exact same benefit. So the money that you invest inside of your FHSA can also grow tax-free, meaning that you can put money into the account, let it grow, and take the money out without paying any taxes on it. But on top of that, the FHSA also lets you reduce your taxable income. As a quick example, let's say that you make $70,000 a year from your job and you contributed $5,000 to your FHSA. When it's time to file your taxes, you'd only have to pay taxes on $65,000 worth of income instead. So basically, you save some money. Again, for me, I really wanted to finish maxing out my TFSA first, where I'm investing for retirement, but I knew that I had to take advantage of these amazing FHSA perks next. Now, with that being said, Dennis and I aren't in a rush to buy a house for us to live in. Our main financial priority right now is investing as much as possible as early as possible for our future retirement. And the main reason for this is because we know time in the market is really important, which basically just means that the longer your money is invested for, the more time it has to take advantage of compound interest and growth. So basically, we'll be able to contribute less over time by focusing on investing now. Here's an example. If you invest $1,000 a month starting at age 25 for 30 years with an average annual return of 8%, you'll have contributed $360,000 and you'll have $1.4 million. But if you invest $2,000 a month starting at age 35 and you invest for 20 years with an 8% average annual return, you'll have contributed $480,000 and only have $1.1 million. That means that although you can still end up with a lot of money in your investment portfolio even if you start investing later on, you had to contribute more and you still ended up with less. And that's the main reason why we really want to focus on long-term investing now, since we have the ability to while we're still in our 20s. So even though buying a house isn't our main financial goal right now, we do know that we'll likely want to buy a house for us to live in within the next decade or so. And the earlier we start investing for that purchase, the more time our money has to grow as well. Now, the other reason that I was open to using an FHSA next, on top of the great perks and the fact that I do want to have time for my money to grow before I actually go to purchase a house, is because the yearly contribution limit isn't that high. Remember how I said that the FHSA has an overall lifetime contribution limit of $40,000? Well, you can't open this account and then contribute $40,000 all at once. Instead, there's a yearly contribution limit of $8,000. Contribution room only starts building once you actually open an FHSA. So if you open one in 2024, then you get $8,000 worth of contribution room right away. Also, additional room builds in January of the next year. So for example, let's say that you opened up an FHSA in December 2024, you'd have $8,000 worth of contribution room right away. away. And then in January 2025, so only 1 month later, you'd have another $8,000 worth of contribution room as well. Now, what I meant when I said that I wanted to use an FHSA next because the yearly contribution room limit isn't that high is that I could actually max out this contribution room within just a few months and then get back to my main financial goal of investing for the long term. So I ended up opening an FHSA in March of this year, and then I started putting $2,000 a month into the account until I maxed it out. Now, $2,000 a month is what I invest anyways. It's my standard monthly contribution. And then anytime we have any extra money, if that's from a tax refund or an end of year bonus that we pay ourselves out, then I'll add more to my investments on top of that. So that means that I contributed $2,000 in March, April, May, and June, meaning that I officially maxed out my current FHSA contribution limit of $8,000 in June. And honestly, even though it wasn't as big of a deal as maxing out my TFSA was, because that took me years of working towards that goal instead of just a few months, it still felt really good. I think it's especially because I finally am putting some money towards another future financial goal of mine, which just always feels nice. Now, I did stick to the plan that I told you guys about in a video that we posted earlier this year. In that video, we actually walked you through the different investment options that I could end up purchasing within my FHSA, and after weighing all of my personal options, I ended up deciding to go with XEQT. XEQT is an all-equity ETF, and it's actually the same investment that I purchased inside of my TFSA as well. It's geographically diversified, so it covers the US, Canadian, developed, and emerging markets. Now, you can check out that other video for all of the details on why I made that decision, but the main factor for me is that I'm not planning on touching this money for a somewhat long period of time. Now, the FHSA is an interesting account because for some people, it might be a pretty short-term account. For example, you might start contributing money towards it, but then want to pull that out to buy your first home within only 2 to 5 years, which is a pretty short period of time. If that's your situation, then you'd want to consider investing in something like a GIC, where your money is guaranteed to not go down in value. When you're putting money aside for something that you plan on purchasing within only the next few years, you wouldn't want to be investing that money, and then when you go to use it, see that it's gone down in value more than what you've initially put in yourself. In my situation, given that the money is not going to be used for at least 5 years and most likely even longer than that, I wanted to invest in something that would hopefully see my money grow more in value. And if there is a dip in the market between now and then, I should have time for it to recover and my money to go back up before I need to use it again. Now, I use the Wealthsimple Trade app for all my investing. So if we pull up the app and look at my FHSA, you can see that the $8,000 that I contributed and invested into XEQT is currently actually up by 4.64%. So it's currently sitting at $8,371.20. Now, obviously, this can change every single day, but that's the current return so far. Now, both my TFSA and FHSA are maxed out for 2024. So what's next? Well, after I maxed out my FHSA in June, I knew I still had 6 months left in 2024 to invest my standard $2,000 a month, and I'd planned where I was going to put that money even before I finished maxing out my FHSA, to my RRSP. The RRSP, or the Registered Retirement Savings Plan, is another great tax-advantaged investment account in Canada. Now, the RRSP is tax-deferred, just like the FHSA is, meaning that money that you contribute to this account can be used to reduce your taxable income. Now, RRSPs aren't tax-free. The benefit that they offer is solely that they're tax deferred. So when you put money into this account, you save money in the short term by bringing down the amount of taxes that you have to pay. But in the future, when you take money out of this account, you do have to pay taxes on that money, and it's added to your taxable income for the year that you withdraw it. The idea is that you contribute money when your income's higher than what it will be when you withdraw your money. So you still end up saving taxes over the course of your lifetime. Now, that's the main reason why I wanted to max out my TFSA before my RRSP, because you benefit the most from your RRSP if you contribute to it, or at least reduce your taxable income in your highest income earning years. Now, that brings up a really important point. You actually don't have to reduce your taxable income in the same year that you contribute to your RRSP. You can actually defer the deduction to a future year. For example, let's say that I contribute $5,000 to my RRSP in 2024, but I know that I'm going to make more money in 2027. I could, when I'm filing my tax return for 2024, choose to defer that deduction. And then in 2027, when I'm filing my tax return that year, I could choose to claim the deduction then. This way you can contribute to your RRSP sooner and get the benefit of investing your money sooner, but still benefit as much as possible from reducing your taxable income. Now, for most people, it still makes sense to max out your TFSA before doing this, but once your TFSA is maxed out, if you still don't think you're in your highest income earning years, then this is a great option. So now that I've maxed out my TFSA and my FHSA, FHSA, my plan is to open up my RRSP and start contributing to that account next. Now, according to my calculations, I should have a total RRSP contribution room of $61,822, or somewhere around there at least. If you're wondering how RRSP contribution room works, it's actually different than both the TFSA and the FHSA. It's 18% of the income that you earned in the previous year, up to a maximum limit that changes every year. So once you start earning an income, you can contribute 18% of that income per year into your RRSP. Now, the contribution room is also cumulative, meaning that it grows every year. So even though I've never opened up an RRSP before, I have that $61,822 worth of room sitting there waiting for me to use. Now, keep in mind that this number is obviously very specific to me. It's different for everyone since it's based on your income. Now, I know that I'm going to be able to contribute at least $12,000 to my RRSP this year because I already invest $2,000 a month. I have 6 months from July to December, so that's a great start, but I also know that I won't be maxing out the entire $60,000 plus this year. So for now, I'm planning on investing as much as possible into my RRSP for the rest of 2024, and then in 2025, I'm going to go back to remaxing out my TFSA with the new contribution room that's added every year in January. After that, I'll go back to remaxing out my FHSA with the $8,000 that's also added as of January, and then finally I'll go back to revisiting my RRSP and continue to try to max that out. Now, my plan is to continue to repeat that process until they're all maxed out, and then eventually open up a taxable investment account too. Now, I think I mentioned this in my I maxed out my TFSA video as well, but keep in mind that this plan could change, or at least the timeline could change based on what's going on in my life, but for now, that's what I'm working towards. We're also going to be sharing another video within the next few weeks breaking down my RRSP investment strategy and specifically talking about what investment I'm going to be purchasing inside of my RRSP. Now, spoiler alert, it's not going to be XCQT. I'm actually switching things up for this account, so make sure you stay tuned for that one. Now, keep in mind that this video is very personal to me and my specific investing journey, but if you want to learn more about the FHSA or even the TFSA or RRSP in general without my specific situation involved in it, then make sure you check out this playlist after this video. And remember that we'll be back next week with another video.